So I mean, I have a few things to say. First, that I always defer to Palestinians. I don't think it's my place to be saying one state or two state, because ultimately this really doesn't impact my life. But on a greater point, I think the two-state solution has become a cop-out for. It's basically become the default position of liberal Zionism, and I don't think it has any legitimacy, because the state of Israel as it currently exists has no legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people freak out when they hear that, but what I mean to say is that a state derives its legitimacy from its ability to behave humanely and to respect the people that live within the confines of its borders. And Israel doesn't do either of those things. Israel bombs places outside of its borders and massacres thousands of Palestinians, keeps the West Bank in a virtual prison state, as well as Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And within its borders, it's still an apartheid state, in that Arab Israelis, Palestinian citizens of Israel, are treated as second-class citizens. There are over 50 laws on the books that prevent, that make it difficult for Arabs to get housing, to marry Jewish people, to hold positions in government. So, when we talk about a two-state, I think that has become the position of liberal Zionist groups like J Street, which are more or less trying to prevent the question of the right of return, and they want to consolidate the gains of Israel's colonial project. So throughout Zionist history, there have always been two schools of thought of how to colonize Palestine. There have been the right-wingers like Netanyahu, who just say, carpet bomb the land, go full force,
treat them like the American Indians.
Exactly. And there's that school of thinking. There's also the school of thinking of more liberal people that would say Israel should not occupy the West Bank and Gaza, not because it's the right thing to do, but because Israel would not be able to control those areas, and it'll just create more hatred among Palestinians, and it'll be a threat to the Jewish state. So, I think the two-state nowadays has been rooted in people that are willing to concede that Israel's actions in West Bank and Gaza are absolutely indefensible and are an absolute PR nightmare for Israel,
mm-hmm.
and would like to withdraw solely for the purpose that they can, consolidate what they've gained, which is what is currently Israel proper, which is already massively, it is massively expanded since 1948. Israel now controls the Golan Heights. It has a lot of settlements in the West Bank, and when it comes to the one state, there are people that say one state, or there are right-wing Zionists that say one state, it'll be Israel, and Palestinians will have rights, quote unquote, but obviously Palestinians haven't had rights for 70 years,
right,
so
like
there's
the Jim Crow South. Yeah.
Exactly. So
kind of already is.
So that's one scenario for the one state, which we obviously don't want. The other scenario for one state is one state. The name isn't important, but what's important is that everyone has equal rights on the same piece of dirt. And the problem there is that, there's been this historic call. It's been a 70-year call. Ever since Israel was created, there's been a call for this right of return. For those that don't know, it's basically the right of Palestinians that were kicked out of
mm-hmm.
the land in 1948 to return to their ancestral homes. And there are, actually Palestinians that still have the keys to their own home, to their old homes, which are now in Israel, and they're still waiting to return. But the problem with the one state with, full rights for everyone, it's not a problem, but the problem for Zionists is that if the right of return is granted, there is going to be an Arab majority population, a Muslim majority population, and it will cease to be a Jewish state. But, for me, obviously, that's the solution. That's the only just solution there is. Israel was never a legitimate entity to begin with, and instead of repairing the damage it did in 1948 when UN Resolution 194 was passed, which said Israel has to pay reparations to all the Palestinians that it harmed. it doubled down on that violence, and it's caused 70 years of generational trauma and displacement. So the only just solution is for, at the very least, for Palestinians to be able to return to their homeland, have full rights on that land, and also be paid reparations for all of the suffering that they went through. Now, whether or not that's a politically viable